In this video, we bring to you the true record on the oldest persons executed in 2020. This is Inmate Execution Channel. Subscribe now to be part of this community. On January 22, 1998, 16-year-old Jennifer Long accepted a ride from a stranger in a white Ford pickup in Kansas City, Missouri. She would never be seen again. 22 years later, her killer, 68-year-old Wesley Ira Perkey, faced lethal injection at the Terre Haute Federal Penitentiary. His final words condemned the act about to unfold. This sanitized murder really does not serve no purpose whatsoever. Yet behind those words lay a trail of unspeakable violence against the young and the elderly, a legacy demanding reckoning. Born January 6, 1952, in Wichita, Kansas, Perkey endured repeated sexual abuse as a child. By 14, he was evaluated for brain damage, a condition worsened by 3 traumatic brain injuries between ages 16 and 24. Diagnosed with schizophrenia and antisocial personality disorder at 18, his descent into violence began early. His criminal record erupted in 1970 with burglary, then escalated in 1980 when he shot a man twice in the head during a robbery. The victim survived but was left permanently disabled. Despite objections from victims and prosecutors, the Kansas Parole Board released him in 1997 after 17 years, citing his good progress in prison. Counselors had warned he was a classic psychopath, but the board deemed his intelligence a moderating force. High on crack cocaine after a plumbing job interview, Perkey spotted Jennifer walking alone. He lured her with promises of alcohol, but when she tried to escape, he brandished a boning knife. At his Lansing, Kansas home, he raped her in the basement, then stabbed her repeatedly in the chest, face, and neck as she fought. In a chilling cover-up, he dismembered her body with an electric chainsaw, burned her remains in his fireplace, and dumped the ashes in a septic pond in Clearwater, Kansas. He then forced his stepchildren to scrub the crime scene with bleach. Police dismissed Jennifer as a runaway, devastating her family, who distributed flyers for months. 8 months later, Perkey arrived at 80-year-old Mary Ruth Bell's Kansas City home under the guise of fixing her faucet. After stealing her payment for crack and a sex worker, he returned the next day with a claw hammer. He bludgeoned her to death in her bedroom, crushing her skull. Perkey and the sex worker then ate food from Bell's refrigerator while her body lay nearby. When neighbors spotted him returning days later with gasoline to burn the house, police identified him through his plumbing company van. His employer, Reddy Rudar, later paid Bell's family $500,000 for negligent hiring. Jail for Bell's murder. Perkey confessed to Jennifer's killing in December 1998, not out of remorse, but because he believed federal prison would be more comfortable than Kansas state prisons where he had enemies. He led detectives to the septic pond, boasting her remains were unrecoverable. In 2003, a federal jury convicted him of kidnapping a child resulting in death, sentencing him to death. For Bell's murder, he received life imprisonment, a hollow sentence given his federal death warrant. By 2019, Perkey's mind was unraveling. Neurological exams confirmed Alzheimer's disease, schizophrenia, and dementia. He screamed delusions about prison staff raping and torturing children, insisting he was a victim of government experiments. On July 15, 2020, a federal judge halted his execution, citing grave competency questions. At 2:45 a.m. on July 16th, hours after his scheduled execution time, the Supreme Court overruled in a 5-4 decision. Justice Sonia Sotomayor's dissent warned, "Proceeding now casts a shroud of constitutional doubt over the most irrevocable of injuries. Prison officials handed Perky a one-page letter notifying him of his immediate execution, a move his lawyer called reckless amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Strapped to the gurney at 8 a.m., Perky delivered disjointed last words. "I deeply regret the pain I caused to Jennifer's family and to my daughter." He then condemned the government. The sanitized murder really does not serve no purpose whatsoever. As pentobarbital entered his veins, he died at 8:19 a.m. Jennifer's father, William Long, witnessed the execution. "He took my daughter's last breath. There is no closure." Autopsies of other executed inmates later revealed prisoners likely experienced excruciating pain during lethal injections, contradicting official reports. Perky's execution was the second in the federal government's unprecedented 2020 to 2021 execution spree, resuming after a 17-year hiatus. His case exposed fatal flaws, the rushed executions amid pandemic risks, the dismissal of mental competency evidence, and victims' families trapped in legal limbo. As the ACLU declared, courts abandon the constitutional prohibition on executing people who lack rational understanding. Wesley Perky died a broken man, but the questions about America's pursuit of justice live on, echoing in the pre-dawn rulings that sealed his fate. Next is Donnie Cleveland Lance. On November 8, 1997, Donnie Cleveland Lance, then 44, forcibly entered the Jackson County, Georgia, home of Dwight Butch Wood Jr. by kicking in the front door. He shot Wood twice with a shotgun, once in the chest and once in the back, before bludgeoning his ex-wife, Sabrina Joy Lance, to death with the shotgun butt. The attack left Joy's skull fragments embedded in the floorboards. No eyewitnesses saw the crime, and the murder weapon was never recovered. Physical evidence linking Lance to the scene, such as blood or DNA, was absent, despite the brutality of the killings. Investigators focused on Lance within hours due to his documented history of violence against Joy, which included strangling her unconscious, electrocution attempts with a car battery, and repeated death threats against her and Wood. Witnesses confirmed Lance had vowed to kill Joy if she pursued relationships after their divorce. Lance was indicted in 1998 by a grand jury that his attorneys alleged was improperly selected. The prosecutor, Tim Madison, was accused of packing the jury with acquaintances from his church rather than using a random selection process, potentially biasing the indictment. At trial in 1999, the prosecution's case relied entirely on circumstantial evidence. Footwear analysis. Size 7.5 shoe prints at the crime scene matched Sears Die Hard boots Lance purchased and later exchanged under warranty. Incriminating statements. A witness testified Lance visited his shop hours after murders, declaring Joy the bitch would not clean his house and that Wood's father can't buy him out of hell. Prior violence. Evidence detailed Lance's 1993 armed invasion of Wood's home, where he kicked in the door while carrying a sawed-off shotgun. Lance's court-appointed lawyer denied funds for experts, presented no mitigating evidence during the penalty phase. The jury never heard about Lance's frontal lobe brain damage from multiple car crashes and a prior gunshot wound, his borderline intellectual disability, IQ 77, or expert assessments that his impulse control resembled a 6-year-old's. The death sentence was decided in under an hour. Lance maintained his innocence and sought DNA testing on crime scene evidence, e.g., with fragments from the shotgun butt, a fingerprint on a shotgun shell. Courts consistently denied these requests, asserting results would not alter the verdict given other evidence. In 2019, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to review his case, though Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Elena Kagan dissented. Sotomayor criticized the failure to present brain damage evidence, stating Lance might be executed without any adequately informed jury having decided his fate. Lance's children, Stephanie Cape and Jesse Lance, led a clemency campaign, submitting a letter to the Georgia Parole Board. We spent our whole lives with this huge gaping hole in our hearts, but at least we've had Dad at our sides. We have lost just as much, but somehow we still have more to lose. They acknowledge the suffering of Joy's and Wood's families, but emphasize their unique loss of both parents. The board denied clemency on January 28, 2020. On January 29, 2020, Lance was executed by lethal injection at Georgia Diagnostic and Classification Prison. His final meal included 2 chili steak burgers, French fries, onion rings, and soda. He declined a final prayer and made no last statement. The lethal injection began at 8:54 p.m. Witnesses noted he took deep breaths, wiggled his toes, and became still. He was pronounced dead at 9:05 p.m. His children, who visited him hours earlier, honored his request not to witness the execution. The final oldest person executed in 2020 is Tammy Gardner. On January 23, 2005, Tammy Gardner lay dying in her Anna, Texas home, a .44 Magnum bullet lodged in her brain. With extraordinary courage, she used her final moments to dial 911 and identify her killer, her estranged husband, John Stephen Gardner. Shot in the head. "Stephen Gardner, white pickup," she gasped. Her call set in motion a chain of events that would end 15 years later with Gardner's execution. Texas 1st of 2020. This is the story of a predator who spent 4 decades terrorizing women, and the justice that finally caught him. Gardner's reign of terror began long before Tammy's murder. In 1982, he shot his pregnant wife Rhoda in a Mississippi parking lot. When she fell, he stood over her and fired into her face at point-blank range. Rhoda survived initially but was left paralyzed and lost her unborn child. She died weeks later during surgery. Astonishingly, Gardner served only 2 years for this crime. His pattern escalated with each marriage. He kidnapped his 3rd wife at knife point after beating her daughter unconscious, sexually assaulted multiple stepdaughters, and murdered a puppy with a hammer to punish his 4th wife. Tammy knew this history, but believed she could escape. In late 2004, she filed for divorce, telling her neurologist, "He caresses me with his gun during sex." Hours before her death, Gardner bombarded her with threatening texts demanding she answer yes or no about reconciliation. Terrified, she visited co-worker David Young, seeking help to disappear. At 11:13 p.m., she called Young from home, insisting everything's okay, a tragic miscalculation. At 11:58 p.m., Gardner used secretly kept keys to enter her house. He found Tammy in bed, sick with the flu, and shot her in the right temple. Yet Tammy fought back. She crawled to her bathroom, called 911, and provided critical details before losing consciousness. Investigators found damning evidence. A Walmart glove tag in Gardner's borrowed white Ford F-150, traced to a $1.49 purchase in Marshall, Texas. Red fibers from Tammy's robe embedded in the truck seat, and the murder weapon, a .44 Magnum, hidden under his brother-in-law's mattress. When confronted by his sister, Gardner sobbed but showed no remorse, telling Detective Cundiff, "If Tammy wants to tell you what happened, that'll be fine." 2 days later, Tammy's family removed her from life support. At trial, Gardner's lawyers ignored his violent history, arguing abandonment rage, reduced the charge to murder. Prosecutors dismantled this. Witnesses described Tammy's bruises. Her daughter testified to death threats. Letters Tammy left with her ex-husband revealed her fear. The jury convicted him of capital murder based on retaliation, Tammy testifying in divorce proceedings, and burglary, illegal entry, for 14 years. Gardner appealed, claiming abandonment rage should negate capital punishment. The Supreme Court rejected this, citing his destructive compulsion to control women. On January 15, 2020, Gardner faced lethal injection at 64. Strapped to the gurney, he addressed Tammy's family. "I hope you find peace, joy, closure. I am sorry. I know you cannot forgive me." To friends, he whispered, "I want to see the Lord Jesus so bad." At 6:20 p.m., pentobarbital entered his veins. By 6:36 p.m., he was dead. Nearly 15 years to the day after Tammy's murder. Subscribe to this channel to be updated on every inmate in the United States of America. Thank you very much for subscribing to the channel. See you here tomorrow.